Okay, people in the Facebook should be hearing that. Sorry. Just to reiterate, so we're going to be talking about wholesale lists or evaluating wholesale lists and three main softwares that we use to work on this. And the first one I'm going to look at is ScanPower Evaluate. We've used ScanPower Evaluate for a long time. I like their format, and they're always updating their system and adding new columns and fields. So real quickly, I just want to show exactly what ScanPower has to offer. So if I go to the settings for ScanPower Evaluate, I'm going to walk through a list of fields they have that they export. So if you have a UPC list from a vendor, or if you're part of the gem store and you have a UPC list and you want to evaluate yourself, you can put it through, and if you have the cost price as well, it'll search the UPCs on Amazon and come back with the ASIN. I'll zoom in a bit. It comes with the ASIN, the cost price. The marketplace will just say US. It gives you the category on Amazon, title, author, brand, and you can just read through this list. There's a lot of information here. Now, the way they do this is the checkbox are the ones you don't look at, and the ones that are unchecked are the ones that they'll give back. So I unchecked all the things that I thought were important. So obviously we want our net profit. We want our ROI, wherever that is on here, margin percent. Oh, but what they call profit percent is actually ROI. For some reason, they just mislabeled it. The Amazon fees, the breakdown of the fees. So you have their commission, closing fee for media products, the per item fee, FBA fee, etc. And then a whole bunch of other information. And you can customize this to whatever you want it to be. But really, the more important things we want to look at are sales rank, competition information, profit, and ROI. So same thing we were talking about earlier today. When we're talking about the reports, we're looking at the same information. We're just making these decisions based on those parameters first. So an example of a list we run, I downloaded this to my computer earlier because all these are newer lists. I want to look at one that I evaluated at one point. So I have a list from July, and it's a Havaianas list. So this is a flip-flop brand, so it's not really in the right season for it. But when you export it from ScanPower, this is the information they'll basically give you. UPC, ASIN, cost, category, title, brand, sales rank. Message will say if the product was not found on Amazon. So let's say, for example, let me show you this real quick. If the UPC didn't match any results, it'll say your search for this UPC did not match any products. So you know that their product is not listed on Amazon. So if you have a massive list and you want to quickly chop it down, step one is usually looking for the stuff that is listed versus the stuff that's not listed. List price is just the MSRP on Amazon. New FBA offers, how many FBA that's how much the competition is. Amazon's price if they're on there, lowest new FBA price, lowest new merchant filled price. I'm just going to expand these. I'll zoom in a bit. Lowest new Amazon price, FBA, merchant filled. And then we have your profit information. So margin impact is sell price less Amazon fees. So I have the Amazon fees here. I decided to, in this report, I didn't have the breakdown because I just wanted to look at all the fees for this example. So your margin impact is your sell price of $40 less the fees of $10.22, leaving you with $29.78. And then your net payout or your net profit is the margin impact less your cost of goods. So your cost of goods is $10 here. So $29.78 less 10 is $19.78. That's your profit after all costs of goods and fees, which leads you to your ROI, which is your return on investment, which is determined as your net payout divided by your cost. So this is close to a 200% return in this example. Now, what we want to look at to chop this list down to figure out what's worth purchasing and what's not worth purchasing. Now, obviously, we know we want to look at the sales rank. We want to look at the number of competition. We want to look at the net profit. So the quickest and easiest way to do that, in my opinion, is you have your parameters. You can sort the sales rank chart, sort by sales rank low to high, let's say. So now we're looking at all the best ranks. And the way that I used to do it all the time when I used to do a lot of wholesale buying, I would then highlight the ranks in a certain color just because it'll stand out. So let's just say I'll do a number filter. Let's say number filter great less than or equal to 50,000 for my initial evaluation. I'll highlight these guys in red just so they stand out, and then I'll unfilter real quick. Now, you don't have to unfilter it if you want to just look at the better ones. But what I'm going to do next, I'm going to do the same thing with the net payout or ROI. I want to look at the ROIs that are greater than or equal to, let's say, 30%. or let's say 50%. Let's be a little more strong here. So greater than or equal to 0.5. And then I'll highlight these guys in red as well. So then anytime that I have an overlap, these are potentially worth buying because I now have it's a good rank and has a good return. But the problem is, in this example, we're talking about shoes or flip-flops. So the sales rank is tied to the parent. So just because this has a good rank and a good profit doesn't mean this is ever going to sell. I don't know if this variation ever sold because I don't have the reviews ready available. But at the very least, I have my framework of what I'm potentially going to be looking into. So if I chop down my list initially of just say best ranks and best profits, I now have, instead of having a list of, let's say, 2,261 items, I now have a smaller list to work off of. So if I just look at the items that are both red, so let's say I look at only the red items, I'm only looking at a total of 266 items out of 2,200. So I've already chopped down my list by 90% of now what's worth looking into. So yeah, so the reason why I'm saying that in this example, because when you're talking about clothing and shoes, the sales rank is tied to the parent listing. So if I search this item on Amazon, this could have, let's say, 50 different colors or 30 different sizes, which means that this may not be reliable. I'm only having 4 variations that are profitable in this variation. Let's go back here. It looks like maybe this list may have been chopped down earlier at some point. But if this variation was, let's say I was offered all the other sizes and colors of the same variation, and all of them were, 5% ROI or negative, I'm probably not going to just buy the ones that are profitable without doing extra research, because unless this has reviews and has history of selling, this could be just an outlier size with and very strange color that has never sold on Amazon, which is why it's priced higher. So I want to look at the average selling price of the products. So this actually ties into if you have RevSeller, this can be really useful because I can search this ASIN on Amazon. That's the wrong website. It's our website. And see what the status of this. So I see already the price range is very strange. It says from $410 to $60. So the price is all over the place. Has a really good rank. Has about 15 or so variations, and then look and a bunch of different sizes. So if I run RevSeller, the variation viewer, and I just search for the ASIN, oops, it jumped up. It actually has a good amount of reviews because this is so this is probably going to be worth buying if the price is at that point. So this list I'm looking at was from July. Obviously now it's 6-7 months later. It's not accurate at the moment, but if it's selling at $11, our price is $7.50. That's not making us any money. So when this list was ran, Amazon's price was $40 for whatever reason, or on that example, or the price here was $18 as the buy box, leaving us with $5 net profit. So if this is $11, that's going to kill your total profit. So you want to do that extra research after narrowing it down just to see, here's what I want to look into, then do the extra research to look into RevSeller, see what the variations are, see how many people are on the listing, how many variations are on the listing total to see if it's even worth looking into. Because if you're only being offered, let's say from the list, 5 variations out of a list of 153 variations that exist, or even more so because there's out of stock listings, that's not really going to be reliable because this rank no longer means anything to me. I now have to look at the reviews and if it's profitable or not. So I like color coding things because at a glance I can see, well, here we have my overlap of good ranks and good profits. These are the ones I want to look into, as opposed to saying, let's just say I unfiltered again. I'm looking at all the good ranks. If I'm just sorting it low to high by rank, I have great ranks, but I have low profits. So what I like to do, or at least traditionally I used to do it this way, and this is how I did it in the videos, I would sort it after I have it color coded, my best parameters. I'd sort it by rank low to high. That way this is numerically low to high. Now, Excel can't logically sort 2 different columns numerically because if I sort this now high to low, it's going to override this column. But what I can do is I can, since I have my best ROIs in red, I can now sort this by color. And then now I filtered the sheet to show in order best ranks with best profits. And as I scroll down, let me just freeze the top row real quick. As I scroll down, once I get past my best ranks or my initial parameters, I now have the next tier ranks with the higher profits. So I can say, maybe I'll push to these ranks if the ROI or the profit's high enough. Here's a rank of 51,000 with a profit of $15 or $16 at 135% ROI. I might look into this because that'll justify the worst rank if it has a higher profit. And as I continue to scroll down further, so this is a massive list. So I'm just going to jump down a little really quickly. Once I get to the point where I'm out of my range of my best ROIs, I now have the good ranks again with the lower ROIs. And I love how Excel does that, because now it's still sorting this column numerically, but it's prioritizing all the reds first. And now it's going to sort this again numerically with all my other lower ROI. So I may be able, now in this example, I won't do this because this is dealing with variations, and there's a lot of, this sales rank I don't believe is true because of the variations, and this is a very low profit. If we're dealing with a normal list that doesn't have variations, let's say you're dealing with grocery or beauty or health and personal care or home and kitchen, something where the sales rank is directly tied to the product, I would look into taking a lower ROI if it has an incredible rank and I expect to compete with the buy box if there's not too many sellers, because then I know it's gonna sell quickly enough. But at the very least, with this format, I'm now looking at the better ranks with the lower profits, or even taking a loss on some of them. And as I scroll down further, once I get to the point where there's no more overlap or no more red, this is now the next tier ranks with the lower profit. So I know at a glance, I'm probably not even going to focus on these at all, because the ranks aren't where I want them to be, and the ROI isn't as high as I want them to be. So it's a quick and easy way it's a quick way to chop down a list, as you see here, of 2261 items to a potential 221 item list. And then you do your extra research to figure out what's actually worth purchasing. So it makes, using Excel and using the software makes this method extremely easy, or at least easier than it would be than searching one at a time on a list. So obviously other parameters you want to look for is, well, how many people are competing with the buy box, or what's your competition? So you can say, well, I don't want to compete with anyone. Well, let's say more than 3 listings. So you can do a number filter in the offers listing. You can say less than 3. So you're only competing with less competition, and filter it even further out. You want to say, well, maybe I don't want to compete with Amazon at all. Let's ignore Amazon. I can uncheck all the Amazon listings and then leave all the blanks, which means Amazon's not currently selling it. I've now chopped it down even further. Another thing you can look at is, if you want to look at the actual breakdown without actually checking on Amazon, you can see, well, what sizes are these? What colors are these? Are these common enough? Do I think these are going to sell? Because the ranks, like I was saying before, the ranks alone aren't going to be indicative of a sales velocity unless you have the reviews, or unless you know that there's not too many variations. So once you chop down your list, that's when you start to look for the individual aspects on Amazon, like the reviews and the number of variations, and let's say average selling price of the other variations. So just because this is a high profit doesn't mean that anyone's going to buy it at this price if the average for this price is, let's say, half of that on Amazon. So you really want to do your research on that. So that's dealing with a list with variations. So there's always going to be a little more nuance to it. The way I handle lists in different categories is slightly different, because whenever I run lists, at least, let's take DVDs, for example. That's going to be my next list to show. Since there's no variations on DVDs, the rank is reliable towards that exact ASIN. But a sales rank is just a snapshot in time. So if you're dealing with one product, no variations, that sales rank, you may have run the list just when someone happened to buy it. So if you do that and someone buys the product and then that's when you get the data, that's going to be, that rank is going to be inflated and it's not going to be accurate. So to show an example here, I've actually downloaded a list from Price Checker 2, which is the next software I was going to talk about, which is another one to evaluate wholesale lists. They go a little more in depth. They give a lot more data. And if you sign up with the Amazon Associates program, you have the ability to get the reviews from here. So you can actually download all the variations and look at the number of reviews in this. But it gets a little clunky, and in order to grab that, they need to download every single variation. So the list, if you input a list of 1,000 items, they may give you back 10,000 results. So it may be harder to deal with. But at the very least, with Price Checker 2, let's see what they give you. They give you, the title, your cost price you have there, list price, buy box, what your margin is, what Amazon's paying you after the sale, your net profit, your ROI, and sales rank, and the same information. Another extra thing they do add, which I really like about Price Checker, this column here, FBA sellers in buy box contention. So it's not just how many FBA sellers there are, but how many of them are competing with the buy box. So this is actually your real competition, because it's not going to be 26 people selling this that you're competing with. You're selling with these 8 people who are at the current buy box price or near the buy box price, which is $14.99 in this example, or $11.80. So this makes more sense, in a sense, to get that information. Now, the reason I said I use Price Checker 2 here, and the reason this is the DVD list, is because, like I was saying before, the sales rank is only a snapshot in time. So what I like to do with my lists whenever I run them, a day or two later, after I do my initial chopping down by rank and profit, I'll then take those ASINs and rerun it through the software to get an updated net profit, ROI, and sales rank. But I'll keep my original sales rank on here. So instead of looking at one rank, I now have rank 1 and rank 2. So I can get an average rank, or I can just look at the direction. This was 16, it's now 15. This was 37, it's now 16. I can see how volatile it is. This was 66,000, this is now 27,000. So that snapshot is not reliable because I can see how much variance there is. So by looking at the average, and there's a few ways to do the average in Excel. I think the quickest way is probably just do equals average, and then just click on one, then comma, click on the other one. It'll just do it for you. It's pretty easy. Instead of adding it up and dividing. I can look at my average rank to then do my next tier of evaluation. And now do the same thing. Look at my net profit, look at my ROI, look at my sales rank, but using the average, because now I'm looking at 2 points of data. Usually I'll take it one step further if I want to be more careful to make sure I'm doing things to get the right numbers, because as we know, like I've seen lists where we had a 20,000 rank and then the next day it was 100,000 or vice versa. So you don't want to jump in too deep with the wrong quantity you want to buy if you have only one piece of information. So I like having 3 sales ranks. So this actually, I ran this list 3 times. So this is the 3rd rank, and I have the average here, just so I have at least 3 points of data, which will eventually create a line. So if I have, it was low, then high, then low, I know at least there's some consistency. If it went from low to higher, then I can see the direction it's going. It was 16 today, it was 25 the next day, it was 40 the next day. I see the trend, or let's say I do it over the course of a week. So instead of just not back-to-back days, I see the trend is going up or the trend is going down. I can make a little bit more accurate decisions on what quantity I want to purchase based on this data. Plus, I have more accurate information on the net profit and ROI in case the market changed. So when I look at the average rank over time, over these 3 dates, I have now less items that I'm willing to purchase because I've initially had a list of, let's say, 40 items. I chopped it then down to a list of, let's say, after the 2nd rank to maybe 25. And now I have a list of maybe 15 or 13 items, or even let's say 5 or 6. And I'll do the same kind of evaluation. I'll look at my net profit. I'll color it a certain color. I'll look at my sales rank, color it a certain color. And anytime there's overlap, I'll buy deeper in those, and I'll buy a lower quantity for all the other products. So I think it's important to do that kind of extra research, at least maybe one other time to run the list, just so you have more up-to-date information in relation to your older information. You don't have to run it a 3rd time. It's just me going extra careful. But for products that aren't clothing and shoes, where the sales rank is more trustworthy, I think it's important to do this. When you're dealing with clothing and shoes, it's more important to look at the variations and the number of reviews, because the sales rank is being impacted by every single variation, that anytime there's a sale on any of them, it's keeping the rank more consistent. So ranks are generally more consistent in clothing and shoes, whereas in other categories are more volatile because every single product has its own sales rank instead of everything else impacting one sales rank depending on how many variations there are. Any questions on, yeah?
Which software would you recommend?
Scan Power can be easier to use. I've been using Price Checker 2 a lot more lately, but we used Scan Power for maybe 2 years before moving any changes. And it worked like totally fine with us. And they're even making changes to actually mimic sort of what Price Checker 2 is doing. Because for a long time, ScanPower didn't have formulas built in. Price Checker 2 actually does have formulas built in the spreadsheet if you look here. So if you happen to have like a different cost price or you want to change information, let's say the sheet, you got a discount or something like that. You negotiated something with your supplier and you have a 20% discount. If you update your cost of goods here, it'll update your profit and ROI automatically. So ScanPower does that now as well. They have the formulas built in. So they're all kind of competing with each other. I think Price Checker 2 has an edge if you're able to get the reviews, because they also have like estimated sales monthly, which for some reason is not giving you the data for this one, but usually they'll give you what their recommendations are. And what's good about the Price Checker 2 is things get color coded already. So they'll highlight in red the things that they think are not worth buying. They'll highlight things in orange that are potentially worth looking into that they don't know your ROI parameters or your profit parameters, but they'll say, hey, this is potentially looking into. And everything green typically ends up being good products worth buying, but they don't know your parameters. So like I wouldn't buy this because it's $1.15 net profit, but it's a good ROI. This just happens to be a list where my cost price is really low. So I think they go based on ROI over a certain percentage, and everything here green just happens to match up my parameters of how I chop down the list. So they're both really good. ScanPower is a little bit cheaper than Price Checker 2. I think ScanPower for the Evaluate package is $49 a month, whereas Price Checker 2 is $69 a month. But they're both incredibly useful tools because you can take a list of a few thousand items and chop it down to a few hundred or even less in a matter of minutes, just by filtering things out or color coding things and just organizing the data instead of just looking through a massive list and saying, well, let me search this on Amazon, look at it, do evaluation, let me try the next product again. It's just all there for you. And the third software I was going to talk about is ScanSheet from CyberMonkey Deals. So, yes. It's a good question. Yeah, so if you have an Excel sheet or a CSV file or a text file with UPCs in one column and cost price in another column, you can just import it into here, but they have to be in you can drag and drop that information. I don't have, actually I do. If you have a PDF file, you can't run it through. What we usually do is if we have a PDF file, we send it to our VAs and we ask them to manually put it into Excel. Because sometimes when you copy it, so when you have a PDF file, it doesn't always copy into Excel in the right format. Sometimes it puts it all into one cell and then it doesn't work at all. So we have them just on their time curate the list for us, and then we put it through, and then I'll run that list. But we need to keep all the information. And the reason why I like these two software is because they keep the original input information. I have my supplier information right here. This is the supplier SKU, their description, their UPC code, their MSRP or whatever. Everything from their original list is still there. So when I want to make a wholesale order, I chop down my list, I copy it into a new sheet, delete all the Amazon information, send the PO to the vendor with their original information. So I think it's really easy to work with that way. ScanSheet, okay, so I'm actually talking about this already. ScanSheet, what I don't like about ScanSheet is they only have two columns that they keep, the UPC and the cost. They don't save any of the other information. There's one column for notes, but it's only one extra column to keep. So I think that's kind of a negative against them. The positive about this software is you can look at it online. So if I look at this, if I click view online, this is kind of looking at a glance. You see the product in a very clean and nice format. You see your cost of goods, the FB fees, your net profit, the sales rank, buy box information, and you can just look at it at a glance, and you can even sort here by, let's say, minimum ROI 50% or sales rank 50,000, and you can submit it, and then it'll reorganize this sheet to match your parameters. This happens to be a bad list, but it will show that on there. What I don't like about this, sorry, if it'll let me go back. But like I was saying before, it doesn't keep your original information, so it makes it harder to make the purchasing decisions after, because you have to go back to your original list and then match things up again. One more thing I was going to say before questions. You can still export this to Excel. Why is it not letting me download? Let me hold on. I think I have to click on here to download it first. The order that this gives the information in Excel, so if I save this as a CSV file, I just think it's not as intuitive to look at. Like I think if they just reordered their columns, it'd be a little bit better. Because you have your UPC, you have input title, input ASIN, cost price, fine. Then you have all the information they gave, ASIN title, buy box price, et cetera, et cetera. Sales rank is kind of far away, and then you have a bunch of information, and then you have your profit all the way over here. It's just, you can reorder the sheet because to have things, I can just bring my net profit and ROI and put it next to my sales rank. But it's just extra work to be done that where Scan Power and Price Checker already have the information right next to each other. So I think it's a little bit, this is probably, in my opinion, the weakest of the three, but it drastically excels because the way it works in this website is you load in the files and it updates every day. So every single day it'll rerun the list for you, so you don't have to then waste your time uploading it again and then re-downloading it. It's just all here. So you can look at the new data whenever you want to. And the way it works is that you subscribe to a certain amount of records across the total amount of lists you have. So we have, let's say, the highest subscription, 200,000 records. That can be broken down into infinite amount of Excel. Okay, I guess maximum 200,000 lists. They all have one on it, let's say. But you have so much to use for them. And then at the end of the month, is when you're able to delete lists from the system. They have to be there at least for a month because they don't want you to game the system, run a list, delete it, and not have it count towards your maximum because you pay for the month. I forgot how much it is per month actually, but in the chat or the Facebook?
In the chat, right there. It's the orange at the top.
In the chat, right? Okay, sorry. I thought you meant Q&A. Okay, I'll come to the question in a second. You had a question before.
So what do you do with that incomplete sequence? So I'm a supplier where I get 11 digits not 12, so there's like 4 leading zeros.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a little tricky. So there's a few Excel tricks you can do to fix that. I'll get to the question in the chat in a second. So let's say I have my UPC list and it's missing a leading zero. So, or if it has 4, the last digit, I don't know. There's ways of looking up the last digit, but there's no quick way to do it. But if you want to get rid of the other leading zeros, let's say you want to have only 12 digits and you want to have the rightmost 12 digits because you want to get rid of the first ones. You can do equals right, click on the cell, comma, and then you write the number of characters. So your UPC is supposed to be 12 digits, 12, and then it'll give you the leftmost 12. That's one way. Another way, if you're missing a leading zero, you can do equals 0 and, where's my and sign? Then click on the cell, and then it'll add in a 0 next to it.
So in my
it's a few ways.
Missing.
If you're missing the latest digit, unfortunately, there's no way to generate it in Excel unless you have to look it up. So if they don't give it to you, I don't think they fill it in. I doubt they fill it in. So that's a little bit more troublesome to work with. But there's ways of cleaning up the UPCs if they have extra digits or if they have dashes between it. I've seen that a lot of times, and the software can't read it. A quick way to do that, and this is like a nice little trick too. If there's dashes between the UPC, you can highlight the UPC column and do a control and find and replace. So if you go to find and replace, you can search for a dash and just replace with nothing. Don't even put anything in there, and it'll just get rid of them. So there's a lot of little tiny tips and tricks that can help the list. If you're having troubles with them, obviously I don't expect you all to remember these. If you have a list that you need help with, you can just email us to support, and I'll take a look and see if I can clean it up and send it back to you. But it's only based on what information is given to me. Equals right or equals left. And then you specify the number of digits or number of characters. Yep. Equals right, comma, 12, and then end parentheses. So someone had a question in the back. Okay. Or the chat. How do these compare with using the wholesale scan and tactical arbitrage? So I heard tactical arbitrage recently updated how they do their wholesale evaluation, but when I used to look at it, it was similar to Scansheet in that they deleted all the original information except like the UPC and cost, and I never liked that. And I also never loved the format it exported the data in as well, but it does get the same information for the most part. So people are happy with it from some clients I've spoken to. I just personally prefer Scan Power because we've been using it for so long, and Price Checker 2 I've been playing with because I think it's a little more organized, and I found it more useful for me because I deal with a lot of data on a daily basis in bulk, and I like how their formats are. They make it very easy to look at, and I don't have to curate anything or doctor anything so much more as where I used to do it with other software or just manually. Because a long time ago, before we had any software or knew about the software, we used to do wholesale evaluation for just DVDs. When I started here, we were pretty much only selling DVDs and low-end toys. And what we used to do is, for those of you who know that we use Seller Engine Plus to create our shipments and listings. They have a tool that they can run to get the information from Amazon, like the buy box and the sales rank and all this information. And there was ways of like building in like parameters and things like that. It got really messy, but you basically run the list and you export it to a text file, put it into an Excel file, and they didn't have any formulas built in there to calculate profits and ROI. So we had to create our own formulas for Amazon takes 15%, less these fees, less this. This is our net profit. Then here's our ROI column. And it was just way more manual. And everything we had to do was in there. So once we came across, these software, we're like, this is incredible. This is just doing this for us. All we have to do is sift through the data and then make our buying decisions. And that saved us hours of work. Well, once we started using Excel, it saved us hours of work because instead of looking at manually, but it saved us probably a good amount of time from switching from Seller Engine Plus to Scan Power just for evaluating lists in bulk, because we were able to look at our net profit ROI and the sales rank at a glance very quickly and just chop the list down. Okay. Any other questions regarding this? It can be broad questions or very specific, just in case like I didn't go over anything well enough. I do have what's it called? A module in the matrix for Scan Power. It's gonna be a little out of date because they updated their software a bit, but it's the same steps I do with evaluating. So, color coding sales rank, color coding profit, finding the overlap, then doing the extra research on Amazon for the ones you want to look into buying. And then, putting together a potential order, then submitting to the vendor. Yeah. Sure.
It's about buying shoes wholesale.
Mm-hmm.
What's typical net ROI profit?
So yeah. So with shoes, since we know they sell more slowly than other products in different categories, and we know we usually want to buy a size run or we want to buy wide, we'll generally buy smaller quantities. Now, on average, when we're dealing with shoes wholesale, you're normally almost all wholesale companies, your cost of goods is half MSRP. So if you buy it if it sells for $100 and you buy it for $50, you're looking at about a 60% ROI. Because Amazon takes 15% commission, then about $5 in fees. So, right. So the average ROI we see for shoes wholesale is between 40 and 70%, but they're usually consistent. There's less competition. There's less price drops. And if they sell quickly, you can just replenish them and keep that as a consistent income. Not to say all companies are like that. There are some companies that people jump on and then prices change over time as seasons go on, things like that. But there are a few lists that we've had shoes that were 80 to 150% ROI, but they rarely go above that because again, your costs almost always going to be half MSRP unless you have like discounts or there's liquidations or whatever it may be. They're a little more volatile. Right. You're looking at a lower net profit. So with things that sell a little bit lower, I'll go back to the DVD list for this example. So what I normally do when I look at a DVD list is I don't trust the ROI the lower our cost price is because it's going to be less reliable. 57% ROI is great for shoes, but that's $1.15 net profit. That's already going to be lost in shipping costs and labor. So there's no reason I'm going to take this. So when I'm dealing with lower ticket items and lower cost items, I'm focusing more on my net profit than my ROI. So I'll have, let's say, for DVDs, since I know my cost is between 85 cents and $3.25, with the exception of this box set here, that's $20. I'm going to say, well, I want my net profit to be at minimum maybe $4 or $3.50 or $5 because I want to give some wiggle room for the price to drop over time and include my other costs, since I know that this market is a little more volatile. So I want to have that higher net profit because price drops by $1, that drastically affects my ROI and my bottom line just because I paid such a small amount for that. So the same thing applies with flip-flops. We'll have, let's say, maybe an $8 to $10 minimum profit depending on the rank or something like that. We would go to $5 as well. It just depends on other factors. But yeah, if it's an ROI of like 50% and it's $1.50, we wouldn't even look at it because there's no reason to buy this unless it's going to be selling hundreds a day and you can make your capital back instantly. Okay. There's no more questions. Any in the Facebook?
Release the list of the 20 possible locations for the second headquarters and Newark.
Ooh. Interesting. Interesting.
You check it.
Yeah, if there's any questions on Facebook.
The modules for today are actually, or from yesterday, are live in Matrix. So there's a module called AIM January 2018. So the videos from yesterday are.
Got it. Cool. Got it. All right. So there's one question that came in the chat in the Q&A.
In the Facebook, there is one.
Okay, so we have all right. We have one more question. So which is more complete with information would you best recommend we get? Thank you. I would say it's a toss up between Scan Power and Price Checker. Price Checker 2 is a little more thorough, but sometimes can be harder to use, and it's a desktop program, whereas Scan Power is you can access it on any computer you're on anywhere, and Scan Power is a little bit cheaper. And I also have a whole series recorded on Scan Power, so you may be able to pick that one up more quickly. I never got a chance to record Price Checker videos because we started using it after we recorded most of the content, and then we moved to here, and then Q4 and all that stuff. So I may work on recording that, and we may have some videos from them. I don't remember if we got them, but it's worth looking into. I would say Scan Power would probably be easier to work with first, though.
Did you answer any from Facebook?
No, I'm not on Facebook. Is there?
Coach asked, best software to analyze packs, any software that analyzes different pack sizes, see what maybe most profitable.
Okay, so for packs, that's an interesting question because I remember a lot of software struggle with that because it runs a UPC list and comes back with the ASIN that matches it. So unless the UPC matches multiple products, which it shouldn't, I think Price Checker 2 has a way to put in case pack information because there is a column wholesale pack quantity in here. So I think if you change that, it updates the information to your total cost and affects the ROI. Well, it's assuming that the pack is the same. So I think Price Checker 2 may be better for that, just because I know they have the option to tweak it. Scan Power may have made a change to it. I haven't personally checked on it in a while, but I would reach out to see, or we could maybe reach out to the developers for Price Checker to see if the best way to do that, because we're friends with them on Facebook and I have their email contact and I've spoken to him personally before. So I would say send an email to support and I'll look into that later. But I would say Price Checker would probably be the best one for that. Okay, let's close these.
Nadell said she couldn't hear my question.
Okay, stop the screen share. All right, so I guess we'll end this one now. Or mostly you want to end